It's back! What's up guys? In today's video we're taking a look at the Intech ER-14. Let's get into it. Alright, so in today's video we're going to be unboxing and building the Intech ER-14, which is Intech's 10th scale 4-wheel drive race buggy. If you're new to Intech, well, they're definitely not new to the RC industry. They've been around for quite a while now, probably like 12, 14 plus years. They have multiple 8th scale buggies, a 10th scale 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive buggy like this one, and a 10th scale 4-wheel drive short course truck. They were pretty popular here in America about 10 years or a little bit longer ago. They popped off, they had a race team going, things were going well, they were with Dialed RC. They kind of got rid of them. It bounced around a few smaller distributors. I believe Droopy's down in Puerto Rico is the last one to have them here a couple years ago. Intech kind of fell quiet. Well, they're back and stronger than ever, and we have zero plans of getting rid of this brand anytime soon. We're super big fans of them. The guys over at Intech are super great to work with. It is a father and son ran business. They deeply care about the hobby and racing, and they're actually in the development of some new projects, hopefully released in 2025. But enough of that, let's get into this Intech ER-14 buggy. So when you open up your kit box, first thing you're gonna get is the body. It is a low pro aerodynamic cab forward design. You're of course gonna get a clear wing to go with that because you can't have a buggy without a wing. You are gonna get some oils, grease, and a multi-wrench, and we do bag that once it gets here. That way it's double bagged and you don't have oil leaking everywhere. You of course get your bag full of goodies, which is gonna house all your parts and a set of wheels for your buggy. With the latest version of the ER-14, you're gonna get the latest version of their chassis. It is 20% lighter than the previous one and has a ton of machining in all the right places to help save weight but keep that rigidity and strength that you're gonna need on a 10 scale 4-wheel drive buggy. Then in the bottom of the box, you're gonna of course get your manual. It's gonna include your stickers, some double-sided tape, a suspension holder, and a antenna tube. So let's go ahead, get that bag of parts open up the manual, and start building our ER-14 buggy. As we open up the bag of parts here, I just want to point out this buggy is a older design. Like we said earlier, Intech has been around for a while. And while it may not be a groundbreaking new design, at the time this buggy was released, it was actually a little bit ahead of its class. And although the updates have been minor since its initial release, those updates are now included right in the kit, and it is still more than capable of being competitive today. All right, we're starting things off with bag A. Which is gonna be all our diffs. Now, with the ER-14, you do actually get lightened out drives right from the factory. All right. Bearing on there. Out drives. Now, when it comes to these diffs, there is a pretty sketchy and annoying part. On the plastic end of the diff half, when you got your rubber washer and metal washer in there, you want to press them down, use something to press down on the washer really gently. And then the best way to do is get something magnetic, find the hole in there, and you're going to have to go in at an angle and try to get this pin through there so you can have something for the gear to latch onto. And as you can see, it's started in there. I'm gonna try to press it through without pulling it back out. Now is a good time to grab something really skinny and plastic to finish pushing it in there. Another method, once you get it lined up, give it a couple gentle taps downward, stick your finger in there. All right, we got it in there. We ain't taking no chances. We're gonna make sure we get that gear on and settled. Once you can spin it and the gear spins, you're all good to go. Boom, got all the diffs and gears ready to go. Now, an important note, at this part of the build, you would normally fill this up with the diff fluid that you need for your intended surface. In our case, we're not sure where we're gonna run this buggy first, so for now, we're just putting it together, and then later we'll fill it with diff oil when we know where we're gonna be running. Once your front and rear diffs are completed, it's time to move on to bag B, and this is going to be almost identical to bag A in construction, except for the spur gear and adapter you're going to put on instead of the crown gear on the front and rear diffs. Now you do get an 81 tooth spur gear with this kit, and something really cool is the center diff cover is actually aluminum. Again, if you know what surface you're going to be running, now is the point where you'd be adding in your own oil. In our case, we are leaving them empty as we stated previously. Just be careful, make sure the longer screws are going into the aluminum and then into the plastic case, and the shorter screws are for the spur gear. Alright, and your center gear when you're done should look something like that. With the front, rear, and center diffs now complete, it's time to go ahead and move on to Bag C. Bag C is going to give us our front and rear diff cases, as well as our drive shafts and shock towers. One thing cool about the ER-14 is it does come with graphite shock towers front and rear, and as you can see, they are very thick. Once you have that gear in there and you're putting your diff inside to close everything up, just make sure you put some grease on that bevel gear inside of there and onto the diff gear. That way you're not getting any binding and everything will roll nice and smooth. Another grease point, it's always a good idea to put a little bit of grease in there with your little pivot pin. Now, as far as the retaining system for the pin, it can be a little tricky, and it's basically a miniature keyring, and you want to install it just like a keyring. Get one of those grooves started on the actual coupler right there, and then once you get it started, just go ahead and keep spinning it in that direction, and eventually the entire ring will pop onto the drive cup. And eventually it'll pop completely on, just like that. They look a little intimidating at first, but I promise you they are easier than what they seem. On to the second one. At this point, when connecting the drive shafts, make sure you have a little bit of thread lock in order to put on the threads of the grub screw going into the front and rear drive shafts. And remember, the longer one is going to go on the rear and the shorter 73mm drive shaft goes up front. With Bag C now complete, we'll be moving on to the rear suspension. As you can see, I was not joking when I said it's the entire rear clip of the Buggy, and there are some notable parts in here. The arms you get with this are very solid and they feel really good. There is little to no flex in there. They are a stiffer arm. The rear hubs are plastic. There is only side-to-side movement, no up and down. Your front hinge pin holders are aluminum, as well as the 12mm hexes that come in the kit. The adjustable turnbuckles are steel, and it also includes a sway bar. It's always important to make sure you got nice, free-flowing A-arms. With the rear suspension complete, we're past the D-bag and moving on to Bag E. Inside of Bag E, you're going to find all the contents for the front clip of the car. While we're sanding down these shims a little bit, it's also a good time to point out, Now would be a good time to get some metal polish and put on the hinge pins just to make the car a little bit more free. In our case, we're going to end up tearing this whole thing back apart before our first race. So for now, we're just going to make sure the arms are free, and we'll go back and polish them pins at a later date. Just make sure you're using a fine sandpaper. You don't want to take too much of that shim away. And as you can see, that's a lot better just from putting a little bit of sandpaper to those shims. Got a lot more freeness out of them, and if you polish those hinge pins, you're going to get even more. Alright, with the turnbuckles built, the front end and clip of this car is all ready to go, so now it's time to move on to steering. Boom, look at that beautiful Lite and chassis. Moving on to the steering components, in bag F, you are going to get a carbon fiber steering support, a aluminum brace, as well as the Servo Saver tube and collar both being aluminum also. There's the steering so far. Nice little bell crank with that aluminum and carbon fiber. It goes together super easily. Moving on to bag G, this is what's gonna really start making this buggy look like a full race car, and it has quite a bit of goodies tucked away inside. So you are gonna get an aluminum motor mount and center diff brace, and they are a super thick aluminum. You are also gonna get a 2-piece carbon fiber top deck with a front and rear section. Of course, your steering tie rods and your bag full of hardware. And this is the step where we're gonna go ahead and attach that front and rear clip, as well as get that center diff inside the car. Now that our chassis is pretty much complete, time for some shocks. So with Intech, you do get aluminum shock bodies, a big red aluminum adjustable nut, as well as the aluminum little cap on the bottom and an aluminum top cap, and there is a bleeder screw, so it's going to make filling the shocks and adjusting them really easy. And just a heads up, we will not be filling our shocks with oil because we don't know where we're going to be running yet. So to save ourselves from having to clean them out and fill them up with a different oil, we're just going to build these empty for now and fill them up at a later date. So one shock down, 3 more to go. Let's get on it. All right, time for our final bag eye. And that's gonna be the final assembly bag. It's gonna have like your shock standoff, your battery brace, your receiver box, servo horns, all that good stuff. So you do get a 20-tooth pinion in the kit, as well as aluminum shock standoffs and spacers. As far as the battery setup goes, you get a tray for a standard shorty LiPo, a little Intech battery brace to go over top, and then the thumb screws to hold it down are aluminum also. Got a little cocky and accidentally stuck the rear shock screw in there instead of the front. I was wondering why it was sticking out so much. So we gotta go ahead and take that back out, put the right one in, and then do the rear shocks. Alright guys, now that the chassis is complete, this would be the part of the build where you go ahead, add your tires, electronics, and then get the included body and wing all painted up with your livery, and of course add on those Intech ER-14 decals. But for now, I do want to walk through this buggy one more time, show you all the features it comes with, and some of the updates that may go unnoticed. Starting with the updates, the buggy now does come standard with the shorty LiPo battery box. It is still possible to get a second box in there and run saddle packs, but you will need to purchase another box and brace separately. The ER-14 does come standard with that lightweight chassis now, so you're not going to have to purchase that separately to upgrade. It comes right in the kit. Another big change in the manual, they're still going to show suspension pins and set screws holding the rear hubs and the caster blocks to the arms of the car. The car now comes standard though with the all-in-one pin screw, and you got to put a nut on the back of the arms instead of the hinge pins with the set screw. The biggest change, and by far my favorite, is going to have to be those shock caps. You actually get a bleeder screw now, no more bladders like the early kits. Super nice touch, makes shock rebuilding so much more easier, and you just get a lot more consistent shock with it. Now, for overall features of the buggy, you do get that clear body and wing, as well as a set of white wheels and a 20-tooth pinion gear right in the box. And like we mentioned, you do get that lightened chassis, but you do also get the lightened out drives all the way around on the center, front, and rear diffs. Speaking of diffs, you get those huge aluminum diff and motor mounts. I mean, seriously, this is something you'd see on like an 8th scale basher. Staying in the center of the chassis, you are going to get that 2-piece carbon fiber chassis brace that's going to connect the front and rear diff housings to the center diff housing. And on that shorty battery brace, you are going to get aluminum thumb screws and aluminum standoffs. In the steering, you are going to get that aluminum bell crank link, aluminum adjustable nut, and the aluminum servo saver tube. Just in front of that, you're going to get that carbon fiber suspension link. Moving on to the front and rear clips, you're going to get 4mm thick carbon fiber shock towers. Connected to that, you're going to get aluminum standoffs and collars and spacers for the aluminum threaded shock bodies. Below that, you'll get the included front and rear sway bars. And finally, below that, all 4 suspension mount blocks are aluminum from the factory also. Now, some other really cool features, the front and rear diff are quick access. It's just 4 screws, pop off the sway bar links, and you'll be able to pull them out the front and back of the car. And then finally, the coolest part of this buggy is just the modularity of it. In the normal mounting position, the motor sits in the back of the car. However, this center diff can easily be flipped around and the motor can go on either side of the front of the chassis, which means the steering servo can go on either side also. This allows you to truly perfect the balance of your car and move weight around where you might need it, depending on what kind of surface you're running or what handling characteristics of the car you may need. Alright guys, so that's it for part 1 of the Intech ER-14 build series. I hope you really enjoyed this video, and stay tuned. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you want to see more content of the ER-14. We got to figure out what track we're going to be running first, get some fluids in there, get the body painted up with our hack job of a paint job. From there, add some stickers for some more horsepower, and then go have some fun. If you're interested in the ER-14 Buggy or any other Intech vehicles, links will be down in the description below, or you can head directly over to our website, www.naughtyboyrc.com. And remember, keep it naughty.